And it's Dear Love Talk time.
Yes.
This is a segment in which we answer to your questions. And where can they send their questions to?
You can send your questions to questions at lovetalkshow.tv. And I must confess, I really like this segment of the show.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we like to think that we know everything, especially when it comes to love. But the truth is, we don't. So there were times in our relationship, in our marriage, that I didn't really know what to do. Sometimes the problems that we were having was so silly and it was so easy to solve, but I just didn't know. I was very young, I didn't know. And sometimes it could be the case of, you know, the people who watch us. They have a problem or they have a question, something that is simple, but because they don't have the right advice, they never get to solve it. So this is what I like. That's why I like this segment so much, because you get your questions answered.
So let's get cracking them,
yes.
Right? So here comes the first question then. Hi, Luke and Rafa. I was in a relationship for about 7 years, which ended due to me being not a very caring husband. I really wanted to go back to her, but she doesn't want.
Okay.
I feel extremely bad and can't forgive myself. What's your advice? Well, I think that desiring to go back, if it's a genuine desire to go back and not make the same mistakes again, is a big plus.
Yes.
Right? Whether she wants you back or not, it's something else. I mean, what if she doesn't, and full stop, period? I think you should move on. I think if you realize that you made a mistake and you're no longer willing to make that mistake and you've learned your lesson and you're ready to move on, then move on. Now, the problem is not forgiving yourself. I think that's the biggest problem. Because, okay, he's saying that she doesn't want him back. Fair enough, I believe it hurts. Knowing also that he could have avoided that. But not forgiving oneself, that's where the biggest problem is.
Yeah,
because that's an obstacle inside of you, deep inside of you. It's something that, you know, what if she accepts you back? What if she says, okay, come back, but you still haven't forgiven yourself? So she has forgiven you, perhaps, let's say, which is not the case, apparently. Well, I don't know, maybe she decided to forgive you, but she, you know, the relationship became too much, you know, worn out, and she decides then she perhaps no longer into that anymore. Fair enough. But that doesn't mean she didn't forgive you. Now, not forgiving yourself, it's where the problem is.
It's a problem, right? Because let's say his wife gets, you know, accepts him back, is going to affect this relationship. If she doesn't and he moves on to a new relationship, it's going to affect the next relationship. And I think one thing that's very important about this question is, he says he realized he wasn't a very caring husband, and that's why the marriage ended. And he feels bad, that it was because of him, he feels bad. However, knowing that you have made a mistake doesn't mean that you know how to get it right. There's a difference. He may have realized, okay, I messed it up, but that doesn't mean that you know how to get it correctly. So I think the first thing, before thinking about, I want her back, I want her to accept me back, is, if she does, can you do it correctly, even though you realized you made a mistake? You have to work on yourself for you to become a caring man, a caring husband.
Yes, and making sure that if you truly learned a lesson, that you don't repeat it again, obviously, and then move on. You know, you have somehow to tell yourself, you know, yes, I realized what I did, now it's time to move forward. If she doesn't want me, fair enough. I'll move on, and in the next relationship, things will work. I promise myself not to make the same mistakes again, and this is it. I have to move forward, because keeping that feeling inside, carrying that, you know, unforgiveness inside, it's a big problem. So you need to learn the power of self-forgiveness, so you can move forward, even in the eventuality of you finding another partner and start a new relationship.
Absolutely.
Right? You read the next.
Dear Luke and Rafa, I am a 28-year-old woman and single. I struggle with thoughts about myself like, am I good enough? Can I ever be a good wife? Please help. That's interesting because she doesn't say why she has such thoughts.
Well, maybe based on the age, perhaps she's been to a few relationships, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Which case happens a lot, right?
I think, you see, here's one thing that we always talk to people about. Sometimes they think that what they need is a relationship. What's going to solve their problems, their needs, is to be and to have a relationship. This person who wrote to us, she has self-doubts. Am I good enough for someone? Am I going to be a good wife? This is not something that is going to get solved by getting a boyfriend and eventually a husband. Oh, if I have a husband, then all this self-doubt will go away because now I have someone. It doesn't get solved with a relationship.
Because it's very dangerous, right? People who feel that way or think about themselves that way, they think that they need somebody else, another person, another relationship
to reassure them,
to reaffirm them.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous because it's inside of you. Once again, like the last question, the guy who couldn't forgive himself. Now this lady has doubts about herself. I don't know, she's not confident enough. Her self-esteem perhaps is not high, it's very low, and that's causing a lot of problems. So if you're not careful enough, you can just rush into another relationship and once again get hurt. So before looking into the perfect partner, make sure you are the one, okay? Before looking into the perfect partner or always being thinking, who is it gonna be? Is it gonna be this way? Is it gonna be that way? Is he gonna accept me? Am I gonna be good for him and etc. So on and so forth. Think about yourself. What can I do to improve? What can I do to change? What can I do to become that partner that I want to see in him, in the next one? Because if you go into another relationship, once again, feeling that way or thinking that way, what are you going to transmit to that person? The impression you give is of someone who is, weak.
Insecure. And the problem with that is when a person, at the back of her mind, she's thinking, am I good enough? By default, the person gives all the power of the relationship to the other.
Yeah.
So now, he's the one who says whether I'm going to be happy or not. He's the one who says how the relationship is going to go because I'm so insecure and I don't think I'm good enough. If I'm not good enough, that means he's very good. And
it could be the case where it happens a lot, where people, they've been through certain situations in life, events in life, in which they were told they were not good enough, which means they need to rid themselves from those feelings and move forward. Otherwise, it's going to mess with any relationship in the future. Okay? And here's the third question. Let's go. Hey guys, when it comes to race, is there a rule? I would like my partner to be of a certain ethnicity, but I am from a different one. Is it wrong?
So, okay. See, let's see if I understood. The person is of one race, but they want someone from another race.
Yes. Well,
wrong. It's not wrong.
It's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Obviously, there are certain, countries, certain cultures which are very extreme. So you have to analyze, okay? So you have to see, how you're going to handle that, how you're going to deal with that, because we have actually spoken to people who married either a man or a woman from a different background, different race, or not necessarily color or race, but just a different culture.
And upbringing.
And they were upbringing, exactly. And there were a lot of problems there, a lot of cons, which after, when they were married, it became very hard to deal with. It was like a volcano that erupted. There's nothing wrong, obviously, not at all. But you have to analyze those details. You have to see that. I think it's good because it's a woman, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, but is looking into a different race or, ethnicity. There's nothing wrong for that person, right? No discrimination or anything of any kind. But take those things in consideration. If those things, are okay, those boxes have been checked, okay, so there's nothing wrong.
One thing I will say though, sometimes people have this idea in their minds of how they want their partner. Like this one, she wants someone from a different race. They think this is what I want. Many times, let me tell you this, what you want is not what you need. And you will find out soon enough. So it's not wrong and it's not a problem as long as you're not fixed with that idea. And it's like, someone comes along, no.
And ignore some more important things there, that should be considered, right?
Exactly.
Your dream was what? A guy, blonde guy, blue eyes and everything, right? That was your dream. But then I came along.
It wasn't, but okay.
So it wasn't what you were expecting, but I fit in very well, isn't it?
I think it
just kidding, okay, it's not true.
It wasn't like that. But it's a problem because potential people who could be what he or she needs, and they say, no, because they have this idea, it has to be from this country or it has to be from this race.
The first thing they look is where the person is from and the skin color or, I don't know.
The height or the eye colors,
Okay, that's just, the tip of the iceberg. That's very superficial. You have to dig deeper and get to know the person deep inside. Okay? So if you want us to answer to your questions, send your questions to questions@lovetalkshow.tv and we'll be more than glad to answer to your questions.
As you can see, we really enjoy it, so do send them. Do send them to us.
Yes.